Hello everyone, and welcome to the series of videos on chemistry revision. This topic today we'll cover is reduction and oxidation, also known as redox. As you may have already known, we can define oxidation and reduction in 4 different ways. Oxidation can be defined as a gain in oxygen. Oxidation can also be defined as a loss of hydrogen. Oxidation can also be defined in terms of electrons. So oxidation is a loss of electrons or an increase in the oxidation state of a substance. Now reduction is the exact opposite of oxidation. So if oxidation is a gain of oxygen, reduction will be a loss of oxygen. Where oxidation is a loss of hydrogen, reduction is defined as a gain in hydrogen. Oxidation is a loss of electrons, therefore reduction would be a gain in electrons. And in terms of oxidation state, where oxidation is an increase of the oxidation state of a substance, reduction is defined as a decrease in the oxidation state of a substance. So you can see from this table here that oxidation and reduction are merely opposites of each other. So for today's video, we will be focusing on oxidation and reduction in terms of loss or gain of hydrogen and oxygen. We will go through a few examples, and from there hopefully you can see a bit more clearly. Right, let's take the first one, oxidation, gaining oxygen. So this first example, we can see that oxygen reacts with nitrogen to form nitrogen dioxide. Now you can see here that on the left hand side, nitrogen is in its elemental form, okay, whereas after the reaction, the nitrogen here has basically gained an oxygen to form nitrogen dioxide. So we can say nitrogen has gained oxygen to form nitrogen dioxide. And we can see from the table here that gaining oxygen is oxidation. So we can say that nitrogen has been oxidized. Okay, again, let's review. Nitrogen, left hand side, by itself. On the right hand side, nitrogen has now got oxygen bonded to it. Nitrogen has gained oxygen, therefore nitrogen has been oxidized. Now let's take another example where iron now reacts with oxygen to form iron trioxide. Now you may recall that iron trioxide, the common name is hematite. Okay, now here we can see that iron on the left hand side, it's by itself in its elemental form, whereas on the right hand side, after the reaction, iron is now reacted with oxygen. So we can say iron has gained oxygen, and therefore iron has been oxidized. Right? So we can see from both these reactions that both nitrogen and iron here have gained oxygen after the reaction, and therefore both nitrogen and iron in these two cases have been oxidized. Okay, now let's talk about reduction. As we have defined reduction as a gain in hydrogen, we can see from this reaction, when nitrogen reacts with hydrogen to form ammonia, nitrogen on the left hand side is by itself in its elemental form, but after the reaction, the nitrogen has been bonded to a hydrogen. So we can say that nitrogen has gained hydrogen, and we remember that gaining hydrogen is a reduction. Therefore, nitrogen has been reduced. Again, we review nitrogen, left hand side, by itself. Nitrogen on the right hand side, after the reaction, has gained hydrogen. Therefore, nitrogen has been reduced. Let's take another example. When hydrogen reacts with fluorine to form hydrogen fluoride, we can see that the fluorine here has gained hydrogen after the reaction. Therefore, since fluorine has gained hydrogen, we can say that fluorine has been reduced. Okay, so in these four examples, we can see how oxidation and reduction comes into play. Oxidation is the gain of oxygen, whereas a reduction is a gain in hydrogen. Okay, we've been talking about gaining oxygen and hydrogen. Now let's talk about losing hydrogen and oxygen. In this example, we now focus on oxidation as a loss of hydrogen. Now this is a combustion reaction. C2H6 is C2H6 is ethane. Ethane burns in oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water. Now we can see this ethane molecule started off with carbon bonded with hydrogen. But after the reaction, you can see that this carbon here has lost hydrogen. So we say that ethane has lost hydrogen to form carbon dioxide. Therefore, ethane has been oxidized. Now note here that I didn't say carbon has lost hydrogen. I've said ethane, the substance itself, the compound itself, has lost hydrogen. Therefore, ethane has been oxidized. Whereas in the previous examples, the reactions have all involved only elements. So let's recap. When ethane burns in oxygen to form carbon dioxide and water and steam, ethane has lost hydrogen. As you can see here, on the left hand side hydrogen is present, but on the right hand side there is no more hydrogen. So ethane has lost hydrogen to form carbon dioxide. Therefore, ethane has been oxidized. Now, of course, if you had remembered the first section, oxidation in terms of gaining oxygen, you could also say that ethane has gained oxygen to form carbon dioxide, and therefore ethane has been oxidized. So you could use that definition here as well. Now let's talk about reduction in terms of losing oxygen. Now this is a reduction reaction. Copper 2 oxide reacts with carbon to form copper and carbon dioxide. You may recall this equation from the from the chapter of metals for the reduction of metals. We can say that copper oxide here, at the beginning of the reaction, the copper is bonded to an oxygen, but on the right hand side, the copper has lost the oxygen. So we can say copper 2 oxide has lost oxygen to form copper. Therefore, copper 2 oxide has been reduced. Right? Now, let's recap. Copper 2 oxide, there's an oxygen. After the reaction, no oxygen. So copper 2 oxide has lost oxygen, and therefore copper 2 oxide has been reduced. Now I could write the answer in terms of the chemical formula, which is again a bit simpler here since the equation has been given, or we can write it in terms of the name of the compounds. So we can say copper 2 oxide has lost oxygen to form copper, and therefore copper 2 oxide has been reduced. Okay, so You can see from all these examples how oxidation and reduction can be defined in terms of either a gain or loss of oxygen or hydrogen. So let's do a quick recap. Oxygen, a substance has been oxidized if it gains oxygen or it loses hydrogen. And a substance can be said to have been reduced if it has lost oxygen or gained hydrogen. Okay, so I hope this video has been useful to you. Watch out for the next video when we discuss redox reactions in terms of electrons and oxidation state. All right, thank you. Bye bye.